There are myths that bind several constellations. It's the case of Andromeda, Perseus, Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Pegasus, and Cetus, the whale, constellations of the Northern Hemisphere, whose mythology derives from ancient Greece. Cepheus and Cassiopeia were the sovereigns of the Kingdom of Ethiopia. Queen Cassiopeia was a proud woman, and one day she claimed that she and her daughter Andromeda were more beautiful than the Nereids, the nymphs of the sea. Poseidon, the god of the sea, was offended by her vanity and sent various calamities to their kingdom. The king, Cepheus, incapable of finding a solution, consulted an oracle who told him that the only way to pacify Poseidon was to offer his daughter, Andromeda, to the god. Andromeda was chained to a rock, from which a sea monster, Cetus, would have taken her. Perseus was a prince born in Argos, son of Zeus and Danae, and therefore a demigod. To defend his mother from a bad marriage, he was asked to bring the head of the Gorgon Medusa as an offer. The Gorgons, daughters of two primordial sea gods, were immortal, with the exception of one, Medusa, known for having snakes as hair and a stare that could petrify humans. With the favor of several gods, among whom Athena and Hermes, Perseus left to find Medusa. Athena gifted Perseus a polished shield, through which he could see the Gorgon without being turned to stone, and Hermes gave him winged sandals to fly. Perseus cut off Medusa's head by looking at her through the shield, and from her severed head came out, in full size, Pegasus, the winged horse, and the giant Chrysaor. While Perseus was coming back home with Medusa's head, flying on the back of Pegasus, he saw Andromeda chained to the rock and threatened by the marine beast. He decided to save her, killing the monster, and asked her father the permission to marry her. Some say Perseus asked to marry her first as a reward for saving her. Cepheus agrees, even if Andromeda was already betrothed. Perseus eliminated all the opponents with Medusa's head, which retained its power even detached from the body. He also killed his mother's pretender with it, and eventually gifted the head to Athena. Perseus and Andromeda married and flew back to Argos, where he renounced his inheritance to become king of Mycenae. They were turned into constellations by Athena. As punishment for her vanity, Cassiopeia was turned by Poseidon into a constellation in which the queen, tied to her throne, revolves around a pole star, spending half the time of the year hanging upside down. The constellations of Pegasus, Perseus, and Andromeda shine almost at the zenith in the northern hemisphere, between autumn and winter. Pegasus and Andromeda share a star, part of a square alignment called the Great Square of Pegasus. Perseus is often represented as the hero with Medusa's head in his hand. The head is represented by the star Beta Persei or Algol, or Gorgon's head. The name Algol derives from Arabic and means demon's head. This sinister name is due to Algol's variable nature, with its luminosity cycle occurring in around 3 days, and perfectly noticeable with the naked eye. Algol is actually a triple star system, and is the prototypical eclipsing variable star. The dimming of its luminosity is due to the occultation of the primary star, Algol A, by the secondary star, Algol B. The system makes a nice color pair, with the main blue star and the secondary orange one. Algol B is less massive than Algol A, but it is found in an older evolutionary stage. According to stellar evolution, More massive stars evolve quicker than less massive ones, but the findings in Algol seemed to go against the theory. The paradox was solved when mass transfer from Algol B to Algol A was discovered, with Algol B, the older, more massive star, eventually losing matter to its companion and becoming the less massive one. The brightest star, Alpha Persei, is Mifraq. The constellation of Perseus also hosts the radiant, that is, the apparent point in the sky, of the Perseus meteor shower, probably the most famous one, peaking around August 12. The radiant is found at the border with the constellations of the Camelopardalis, the Giraffe, and Cassiopeia. Andromeda is found right beside Perseus and Cassiopeia, and it is identified with the princess chained to the rock. The constellation is famous for hosting the Andromeda Galaxy, object number 31 of the Messier catalogue. M31, with its companions M32 and M110, is a barred spiral galaxy and the nearest galaxy to our own. During clear night skies, M31 can be perceived as a fuzziness in the sky, already with the unaided eye. It is part of the local group of galaxies and is moving closer to the Milky Way, with which is expected to collide in the faraway future. M32 and M110 are its two satellite galaxies. The brightest star of Andromeda is Alpheratz, followed by Merak and Almach. The Andromeda Galaxy lies right beside, respectively, to Merak. The three stars are aligned so that they can be used to trace the way toward Mifraq, Alpha Persei. Alpheratz is also one of the stars of the asterism of the Great Square of Pegasus, and a shared star between the constellations. Pegasus is recognizable by the shape of a square representing the body of the horse. The ramifications from the square represent the head and legs of the horse. One of the most notable objects in the constellation is the Stephan's Quintet, a group of 4 gravitationally bound galaxies, and a fifth one perspectively close. The 4 bound galaxies interact with each other, generating powerful bow shocks and sparking new star formation. They are expected to collide and merge in the faraway future, similar to the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy. Cassiopeia is found right above Perseus and Andromeda, and it represents the queen in her throne. Its proximity to Polaris makes it a circumpolar constellation, meaning it doesn't rise nor set, but it's always visible, from the northern temperate zone. It is also visible in every season. The orientation of its W shape is used to trace the celestial north. In autumn-winter, Cassiopeia appears high in the sky as an inverted or vertically oriented W, and Polaris is found to its left or below it, respectively in autumn and winter. In spring-summer, Cassiopeia appears low on the northern horizon as a W, and Polaris is found to its right or above it, respectively in spring and summer. The most famous object on the constellation is the supernova remnant Casei, the strongest radio source outside the solar system. The supernova explosion is thought to have occurred around 1670, and it could have been visible from the Earth as a bright new star. Another circumpolar constellation is Cepheus, lying right beside Cassiopeia. The most prominent feature is the variable star Delta Cephei, prototype of the Cepheids variable stars. Cepheids are pulsating stars characterized by a helium layer in their outer zone, which expands and shrinks periodically, leading to an increase in luminosity when in the expanding phase, due to the larger emitting surface and higher temperatures. The consequent decrease in temperature leads the helium layers to shrink again. The relation between the luminosity and the pulsation period is well known. It was discovered by Henrietta Swan Leavitt in 1908, and since then, Cepheid variables are used as the standard candles of the universe to derive accurate distance information. Delta Cephei varies its luminosity on a cycle of about 5 days. Even Polaris is a Cepheid variable star. The last constellation of the myth is Cetus, in astronomy translated as the whale. The constellation belongs to the southern hemisphere, below Andromeda and the constellation of the Pisces. Its proximity to the celestial equator makes it visible from almost anywhere. Its most famous component is the variable star Mira, Mira Ceti or Omicron Ceti, prototype of the Mira variable stars. Mira, the marvelous star, can be the brightest star in the constellation when at its luminosity peak, and become invisible to the naked eye when at its lowest, with a cycle of less than a year. This striking and noticeable behavior led it to be the first identified variable star in the 16th century. Mira variables are characterized by strong variations in magnitude happening in over 100 days. They are evolved stars that left their main sequence phase and became red giant stars. During this phase of their life, red giants expand and may expel their outer layers. Mira variables undergo regular cycles of expansion and shrinking of the entire outer layers, with consequent changes in temperature and emitting surface, which lead to changes in luminosity. Similar to Cepheids, Mira variables show a luminosity period relationship, but the period itself may undergo changes in time due to changes in the stellar structure.